Hi Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
Yeah, doing pretty good as well. Doing a lot of barbecue. Was doing a lot of barbecue yesterday. Today, doing some interesting stuff with Autocannon. Maybe you heard about it, maybe not.
No,
there is a bunch of benchmarking tools available for benchmarking your HTTP servers that you write.
Oh, is this the Hetzner instance?
Yeah, so I got this 64 core logical core, right? Not physical one. Physical is 32.
That's a heck of a deal, man.
Yeah, like it's so cheap, and it's not good for production use, but it's good for benchmarking and crazy stuff to try out, like development instance and so on. Because
why not good for production?
Because Hetzner it provides you bare metal server, so you have to install everything yourself on the server. So you have to install operation system, everything. They provide some kind of a firewall around your server instance. But still, like, you don't have real failover. Like, you have to be a really good technician in order to organize the failover for all those services. So you have actually to create a couple of servers. You have to create
a raw instance,
Docker, Kubernetes cluster, to connect multiple instances together. So if one fails, like, it's not going everything out of the window, right?
Interesting. We should put Stratus over there, man. That looks like a really powerful instance for not a lot of money. Get a bunch of them together. What's your other experiences have been like on Hetzner? Good.
Actually, it's an interesting story. Like when I started ecom dev back in 2010, it was our first experience with Hetzner. So we created our staging server on Hetzner, installed over Linux and everything for developers to be able to test different customer projects. But at that time, there was no such powerful machines available for this great price. Nowadays, like, this is just crazy how much AMD actually disrupts the server market right now, because like they really kicked have gave some great punch for Intel with these processors, because like Epic CPUs, they just beat Intel for the price per compute power, because like
I think they're particularly good for NVMe because they have all the extra PCIe bandwidth lanes that NVMe can really eat up. So I'd be really curious to see what the I/O is like with them. Azure has those. How do you say it? Epic or EPYC2s?
I call them Epic, because they're Epic CPUs.
Because they're Epic. Yeah, we'd like to try them out at Azure. AWS has them, but they don't have them with the NVMe. I think it's the NVMe combination that would really make them amazing for us anyway.
And Hetzner just provides for you bare metal that you can just utilize for this kind of testing out how it works. And so far, like, I was using this Autocannon tool. And Autocannon, it's a load testing tool written purely in JavaScript, in Node.js. So it works quite great. Like, it was able to produce actually more load than WRK2. So WRK2, it's a C-based library that spawns a couple of threads, and then those threads they take a lot of CPU time because there's a lot of synchronization between them and a lot of overhead. I was looking for some load testing tool in Rust, because in Rust you can really use less CPU and at the same time utilize all the available threads on your system. But unfortunately, I didn't find a tool like that, so there was no way to test it out in Rust. But I was using this Autocannon tool before, and I tried it, and it actually performed quite well. The only problem, it's single-threaded, so it has a limit of number of requests we can do per second. And on that server, I started my CSRF cookie token Rust web application. I wanted to benchmark it on that server, how it performs. And I hit a limit of 100,000 requests per second on the load testing tool. So load testing tool was pushing CPU to 100, one of the CPUs, and the rest of the CPUs was not feeling any load at all. So
you got 63 idle cores.
Yeah. So
virtual cores.
Basically, like this CSRF token generator probably can handle a lot more load. And now I'm working
a little bit.
I'm working on a small JavaScript library that will actually create multiple forks behind the scenes. Like it will create a fork of each of the after canon processes, and then it will just aggregate the results back and will return you an average latencies across all the fork processes. So instead of, like being limited by 100 requests per second, 100,000 requests per second, you will be limited by the number of actual cores you have multiplied by 100 requests per second. So it's going to be much more easier to perform a test like that. And this is something that's interesting what I'm working on right now. And I also did some tests for this PHP thing, like I was doing a tweet last week about the PHP 8 and JIT. And there was
that tweet blew up, man.
Yeah, the tweet blew up, but it was just some rough tests that I was running, and people just assumed that it was completely unbiased benchmark, and it was just one of the test runs. I just was excited about it, and I just posted it online, and then a lot of people started to ask, how do we replicate it? What technology you use, and so on. So right now I'm working on replicatable tests, and I was running one of them. And with original test was running with worker, and with worker actually I found out like there's a lot of overhead of the worker that actually overwhelms your machine before it actually reaches those request thresholds. And with autocannon, you actually can have a very interesting mode. Like you can set, hey, I want to execute, let's say, 1 million requests. And then autocannon will tell you in what period of time your server processed all these 1 million requests. And from intermediate results, it looks like, with JIT, you can process 1 million requests in 35 seconds. And without JIT, it's around 50 seconds, something like that. So it's almost half. Like it's not exactly half, but almost. And this was kind of exciting because...
It's promising.
Yeah. It's not promising for regular web applications because like when you have just regular PHP process that gets started, it would take much more longer time actually to compile this PHP process to assembler and then run this assembler code on CPU. Like you can use some kind of a caching, but still it's not really good for processes that die because assembler is only good for long running processes that all the time access the same function. And in case of asynchronous PHP, like parsing HTTP requests is kind of nice feature to be able to offload to assembler. And then assembler just directly gets executed on the CPU, and it's much more faster. So it's kind of interesting thing to play around with. And it looks very promising.
Is that similar to what Sergey was doing?
Not at all.
With Swool?
So
It's different.
Swool is kind of a C extension, so you have to compile it, you have to have it on the server together with your PHP thing, and JIT, it's completely different beast. It's native PHP out of the box, so some things that you have.
Yeah, Sergey, he needed an extension and to re-architect a lot of Magento. What's required to get JIT running in PHP 8 with Magento?
In general, like what Sergey did is kind of nice because like right now you have PHP FPM, right? And in PHP FPM, Magento gets started for every single request. So like you start Magento application and only then you execute actually controller. So what he did, he created an FPM of Magento application itself. So let's say you have 50 Magento instances running, and instead of, like doing this processing for every, I don't know the implementation details, but what I expect what he did, right? Because as he explained, like he offloaded the application bootstrap, so it means like that Magento application is initialized on the startup of the Swool server, and then it picks one of the available applications itself to render the request. It's still a blocking application, so it's not going to have the same benefits as writing a completely non-blocking application or an API in a non-blocking way where you just don't wait for I/O to happen. In that case, you're still limited by the number of applications you've started, but it saves a lot of time on the actual response processing. So every single request that you've sent to category page or product page, it doesn't involve reading Magento configuration files and so on. Okay, Mozilla just crashed. This is weird.
Okay, so yeah, that was around creating persistency.
Yeah.
Because Swool needed persistency. But if you have a JIT, a just-in-time compiler, you no longer need persistency,
Why?
Right? So you don't have to do, because you're compiling just in time, not pre for everything.
Yeah.
So
the problem with this one, like you cannot optimize Magento just by using JIT without like having an unblocking application, because JIT effectively requires you to compile some functions to the assembly code. And this assembly code probably will live in each of the FPM processes memory. So it's not going to be in shared memory storage. Probably, I don't know the implementation details of how JIT works in PHP 8, but I don't expect that it's going to work in any different than, for instance, JIT in Java or other languages like Python and so on, where the JIT is available already. And in general, JIT is the next level of optimization over the opcode cache. So you have the op cache, Magento, PHP extensions that already does compilation of the PHP code into the bytecode that gets executed by PHP VM. But this takes in another step by eliminating VM from this logic. However, you cannot have a large buffer size because all the assembly code needs to be in memory. And when you have the process that just executes and dies, the assembly code may be changed between the runs, You can't reliably be sure that the assembly code is different, and there is not really much you can gain from purely I/O bottlenecked application, like let's say Magento or WordPress or anything else. If you have a blocking application, JIT doesn't help you, because JIT optimizes
the I/O.
Yeah, JIT optimizes CPU time. Like if you have, let's say, a PHP process that iterates over 1,000 array items and let's say calculates a sum in some peculiar way, then JIT will help you with the performance because it will be compile assembly code. However, those kind of applications, they are very rare. But in case of non-blocking applications, this is actually quite the opposite, because in non-blocking applications, when you wait for I/O to happen, you process other requests. So actually your CPU time is the biggest bottleneck in I/O applications, in non-blocking applications, sorry. So this is kind of interesting thing that's happening, and it looks very promising for asynchronous PHP.
Yeah. Cool. Should we do the intro?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Load in the Loop, sponsored by Blackfire.io. I'm Eric Hileman, CEO and co-founder of Mojo Magento Hosting out of New York City. The purpose of this program is to take some of what we learned over 10 years of Magento-specific hosting and evaluate one of our customer stores. We'll share with you what we find in hopes that it may help improve your Magento skills and the performance of your Magento stores. Along with me on this trip is my co-host, Ivan.
Hi, my name is Ivan. I'm a performance consultant for Magento web shops out of the Netherlands, originally from Ukraine. Now I'm here together with Eric. We're gonna look at one of the customers, I think one of the oldest customers of Mojo. And Eric...
Mojo OG.
Yeah. Tell us, Eric, a little bit about this customer, what the customer sells, and...
Yeah.
What's your story with them? Yeah.
One of our oldest. At one point I knew every customer who was here, and I still remember this one. They at least 10 years old with us. They do electrical equipment, and I'm not an electrical engineer, so I don't really understand how these tools are used, but it looks like a lot of measuring like impedance and decadence and resistance and all of that fun stuff with electricity, like commercial lab grade or industrial type applications. So they have, let's see, they have a fun mix of extensions here. I think the usual offenders list, and some problems after upgrading to Magento 2.3, which I think is pretty common.
Yeah, MSI all the way.
Guessing MSI.
Yeah. So let's dive deep into the customer store then. And a quick question. So they also manufacture those devices as well themselves, right? So
I think they are. Yeah.
Because I see the devices on the homepage, like there's their logo on every device and so on. So kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So are they B2B or B2C? I think B2B, right?
I would think B2B. I've never seen any electrical parts like this. Interesting stuff, but I don't think you'll find any of it in your home.
So let's do some profiling. Let's right away disable aggregation, and let's just profile the request here. And let's see what's going to happen. Do you know if they use Varnish or they use regular Redis FPC?
I'm not sure. Let's see, I don't have it in my notes here.
We will see it in a couple of moments.
Yeah.
A couple of days ago, I saw some posts on LinkedIn, and some developer was telling that Magento FPC with Redis is very bad because it clears all the products. When you save a product, let's say it clears all the related records with, let's say, thousands of requests to Redis. And this is kind of interesting because, as far as I remember, Redis is not recommended for using in production, and usually like you should use Varnish. And that's why I all the time ask if they use Varnish, because Varnish is very high performance cleaning up of the cache, because you don't have to iterate for every single record you have in cache. In Varnish, it happens on cache access, not on cache ban. So you just create a list of records you want to ban, and then Varnish just at runtime checks, hey, is this record banned? If not, then I'm going to serve from cache. If it's banned, I'm going to request new version from the backend. So This is kind of interesting.
That's interesting. So Redis wasn't recommended for production. Is that in writing somewhere? I haven't seen that.
I think if you go into,
although I've heard that actually.
I think if you go into admin panel and when you check the drop down values for Redis, if you have the default cache type, it probably will show you a warning like it's not recommended for production. You should use Varnish for production. At least I remember it was in early versions of Magento for sure. Maybe they remove it right now, but I definitely remember it was a recommendation to use Varnish.
A lot of our customers don't use Varnish. I mean, I think they want to and they would. They just don't get it working for one reason or another.
But like if you already have some full page cache working, like changing it to Varnish is just changing the full page cache type. Like if you have a problem, let's say with Varnish, it means maybe you are doing something server side. Maybe you have some dynamic parts that leak some information about the customer data and it gets cached. But
yeah, I don't. Nobody has problems using Redis, but Varnish they really struggle. I think they just get stale data and run into issues that they can't.
Oh yeah, but because Varnish requires proper configuration of the banning process, you have also to modify your end-of-date.php in order to make sure that the HTTP cache gets flushed in Varnish. Because this is one thing, just enable Varnish and setting up VCL, but you also need to configure Magento to tell, hey, Magento, here is my Varnish server to which you can send your ban requests.
No, even when we set that up, man, they still have issues with it. Like we'll set that up, but they don't like the individual requests, I guess, or extensions. Maybe it's extensions that aren't clearing it properly or theme stuff they did. But yeah, no, even when we set it up, they still have a lot of issues with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because because it
I wish they'd all use Varnish. That would be great.
Yeah. So this customer is probably using Varnish because, if they would use FPC, we would see a slower version of the page being presented here. Actually, faster version of the page. Now we see the 2-second time to generate this block. So here is some of the common issue we see all the time. It's related to the composer, and here it's kind of weird one. If you take a look, like there is this nwdthemes, revslider, helper, curl. So
curl.
So this is kind of weird. Like, do they, send the information about this website on every single page render to their server?
License check, maybe on every page request, external license server check.
Yeah, but here, for instance, you see like they take the Magento version from Composer again, and this produces a lot of overhead. So this customer either needs to patch Magento get version or get system package version method by applying Composer patch to just return a hard-coded version, or they need to remove this check completely, maybe from the extension code. However, who knows what happens in this curl helper, because it is kind of weird when you have a slider and this slider has some curl helper, because usually you don't do HTTP calls somewhere else if you have just a slider extension. So this is a big red flag in my opinion.
I'm guessing it's a license check.
Yeah, but even if it's a license check, it shouldn't happen on the front end. Like, I can understand if you, let's say, set up a cron job and then you set some flag.
Nah, I don't think people who do license checks like that, I don't think do it on a cron. I think they do it on every page request. At least that's what we see when we're making development copies and it's not licensed, or we're making a copy here and it's not licensed. It's like page requests, it triggers it.
Or for instance, when you run setup di compile, you can do a license check as well. So
definitely better ways to do it, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's much more better ways to do it. But when you do it on every page, first of all, like, why do you need Magento version on page render time? Like, it's not required for you, especially the one from Composer. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then why it's called curl and what happens in this helper. This is a huge question. And yeah, there is also some... Oh, so here is actually our first connection to Redis to access some data, probably. And here is another one. Here is some kind of theme editor. And it's using the view configuration file access. So this is also uncached. So, oh. I just updated Mozilla Firefox just before our recording, so this is
still crashing.
So
that's 2 episodes, and this one 3. It was crashing.
Yeah, this is kind of weird that it happens. So yeah, a little bit.
So that was the theme editor using view configuration file.
Yeah, I think it was somewhere here, right? So let's see. Here is the composer, probably. Yeah, here is the composer. Oh, so I was zooming in here, and then I switched here, and yeah, here I saw this one. So the view configuration needs to be cached in Redis, so you can create a plugin around the view config, and then you can just put it into the Redis cache in order to not read all the files from this file system. However, it's weird that you also have this theme editor, because it doesn't give me a lot of hope about this theme functionality, because if you have a theme editor, it means there is a lot of things going on there. So they probably inject some kind of layout instructions or something like that at the runtime. Okay, well, what have we here? Okay, so here it's a standard bootstrap process, it seems. So this part, okay. Restore this tab. Great. So then we take a look here, and here's our home page. Yeah, there is some slider, and this slider has some weird IO operations here, probably, because this revslider out, add creative layer, and so on. This is very slow functionality. Like, it takes 500 milliseconds in order to, you know, like, iterate through every single layer of this slider. And there's not only one of them, there's a couple of them. At least collection of products doesn't invoke some load in a loop, at least. At least this is good news. But this slider, there is something going on. I can't see exactly what is bad here, but I think there is some I/O happening. Yeah, so there is some I/O happening, and what exactly it doesn't show here, but probably there is some database queries related to the slider. Okay, so here you see, if we take a look by the number of calls, we see that number of queries gets executed on the database specifically for this slider. So this slider produces quite a lot of database operations, and the rest of operations are not that complex, but the slider one yeah, it's the most time and the most amount of queries after, of course, CMS blocks. So CMS blocks, these ones are also introducing some issues, but this is standard Magento core issue, because when you create a CMS block and you put it on a page, Magento loads every single block separately, so it doesn't analyze layout for possible CMS blocks in there. So what can we tell here as well? Not really much, right? So there is not much we can do. It's just a home page, but we already found a couple of issues with the slider. So the slider takes the most time. After that, there goes the composer issues, the composer version file retrieval. Find file as well, like they also don't optimize composer after load as well, as you see. They have around 2,797 calls to find file, and find file invokes system IO, and yeah, it's kind of bad. So they need to adjust their deployment procedure in order to reduce those calls. They just need to execute actually composer dump -o, and it will be all fine. So let's go into some page, right? Did we have any kind of example pages that they have issues with? Okay, I see one.
Product pages, yeah. There's a couple example product pages.
So
they have complaints.
Let's see. Oh, it's kind of slow even without profiler. Okay, so this is a complex product page, I see. Like you can configure, do a bunch of stuff here. So let's run a profiler over here, and let's see what's going on here, because probably there is some load and a loop happening there, because if it's a configure or something like, yeah, okay. So this is like a group product with some filters probably, right? Let's see how it goes with the performance, because I think I already have a guess what's going on there, because probably there is iteration over all the simple products or something like that. So it was kind of long profile, so let's guess how many database queries we're gonna have here. I bet on 1,500. And you? Eric, I've lost your sound. Okay. Eric, I don't hear you, but do you hear me? But I don't hear you. So something with your mic? Okay. Let me also check if it's not an issue on my side as well. No, everything's fine here. Okay, the sound works great on my side. I still don't hear you. Yeah, I hear you now. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It's super weird. Yeah, okay. I'm going to have to get a new USB DAC. I think that's what's been going bad.
So what kind of bet you were placing on number of queries?
Oh, 1,000.
Yeah.
But I think you're probably closer.
I think I'm way off, like this is something like...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think they broke all the records on our show.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, like it's 13K database queries. So let's take a look what's actually going on there, right? Look this number of operations here. Okay.
That's a LITL record.
And yeah, seems like this get config does a lot of loading loops, and unfortunately, the problem with this one that Blackfire doesn't show what actually is happening there, because like there are so many things that it just doesn't show more in detail what's going on there. Okay, so here it is. It has this get product by attributes, and then it does a product load, and probably there's a lot of calls like that all over the get config. Yeah, so there's this get product by attributes. I don't know what is the purpose of this functionality, like how it exactly works, but definitely there is a huge optimization potential over there, because yeah, like it is too much database queries to execute, and all this process with getting the config takes like 31 seconds on each product page. So
this is our own custom thing. It looks like IET Labs.
Maybe a developer did something, but yeah, here's the query that they use. So seems like they tried to find all the products. Yeah, let's see what this query does actually.
Yeah.
So we have attribute value from catalog product entity and varchar, and then attribute. Oh, this is probably just the AV data for product. Is it? Looks like it. Yeah, just every single product separately. And here is probably something related to simple products in configurable product as well. Like, so there is at least like 252 configurable products gets access on this specific page. So on this specific page, there is like 255 configurable products being used here on this page, and I think this is where those configurable products are coming from. So probably if I click here, for instance, on a model, right? So this is one of the models, or this is just a number of simple products of this model. I don't know, but yeah, it definitely makes sense to take a look at the code base, because without code base, you cannot know what actually happens over there, because unfortunately it's hard to tell, but they definitely need to remove this load in a loop because it just consumes the whole page render time.
What do you think they're doing? They're loading every individual product to get some data from it. The usual product repository full load.
Yeah, so this is configure model.html, and this is probably to render this. Like when you click configure model here, you see all this list of products. So this is probably what happens. Like they'll probably load every single product here by some specific attribute. And I don't know what happens there. It just requires investigation by their developers, like really look into it, because this is not how this should be done. So it's in instant quote module.
How would you do it? Like load it in a collection all at once and then?
First of all, like I don't know what the criteria was there. So definitely it would be some kind of like a single database query that you would perform if, let's say, I need to access some EAV data or filter by some EAV data. I'd create a separate indexer that will index this data into a single flat table in which I can, for instance, search by those attribute values. And then just load products by IDs. So I will run a query to retrieve product IDs that I need to show, and then I would run another query to actually retrieve the products. Actually, even not query, but just will use repository or collection in order to receive the list of the products with the required data I need. But here, there's a lot of product loads happening. So yeah, there is 256 product load and 273 collection load. So apart from products load, there is also collections gets used in order to find the actual product that needs to be shown. So this is kind of a lot of overhead. And yeah, do we have anything else that stands out on this page? Oh yeah, the good old friend pagespeedoptimizer. So just use magepack. Magepack or...
Can't have a show without an amasty extension.
Yeah, but here they're not the biggest contributor for performance issues. So here is this instant quote that is not that instant. Kind of a little bit of an interesting name. So this instant quote actually makes it kind of a delay. So, and they have also another product that we can take a look at, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably the same kind of a problem, I expect.
Probably.
Yeah, I see the same configure model. So probably if I just run a profiler, I probably will see the same issue here. Okay. This one took a little bit faster to generate some data, because probably there is smaller number. Yeah, there is smaller number of products associated with it, as you see here. So the first one definitely broke a lot of records. This one is something that you predicted originally. So
yeah, there we go.
So you predicted the right amount of queries for this product. But that one, yeah, it was kind of tough. And probably here we can see more in detail what happens, but still, yeah, it's the same thing, like get product by attributes. What's interesting to see, like, what happens here in this get config method, like, yeah, what kind of operations are happening over there and what can be done here. It requires an investigation by a developer to see what's going on. But in general, yeah, probably we will see as well here something related to options. Okay, this is as well, they have some issue with option provider for configurable product. So yeah, they also run into another issue in Magento core, because their configurable product has a lot of configurable options, or let's say an attribute here. Let's say when you configure a model, right, every single resistance value here, right? It's not a resistance. It's a different. It's an inductance value, and every variations of it has a known drop-down value probably in admin panel. Like you probably will see like 1,000 of these various values. And when you load this 1,000 of values in a collection, Magento doesn't filter out the values that are only applicable to this product. Magento just takes the data for every single value out there. And if Magento would just filter out only for available options here in order to display the text value of the selected option, it wouldn't take this amount of time in order to load this data, because it's like 200 milliseconds only to get these options, or even 400 milliseconds, yeah. So this is kind of heavy, and it can be optimized by modifying Magento core. Here we have also some kind of easytabs extension that accesses a version of itself for unknown reason. You see a full module list and then get own module version. I don't know why they are doing it, but this is not something that you're supposed to do. And yeah, again, the same extension I think that we've seen before, this revslider. However, the slider is not available on the product page, right? So if you are on product page, you don't have a slider, but the slider extension still does a lot of stuff on this page as well. So this just makes sense to remove it on other pages except the home page. And here, what we see here, and nothing more. Probably this easytabs, and I think it's the same extension provider, right? revslider. Oh no,
swissups.
Yeah, it's something else. Yeah, it's not a revslider. So revslider, it's from. Yeah, let's see. Or it's nwdthemes. So it's a different one. So there's a lot of interesting extensions here. And this option loader, actually, it takes the most of the time from actually the product load operation. So when you load a product, the time to access the attribute options is kind of huge. And this is a configurable product. So, okay. So now I see what is the problem. I probably know what they are doing. So this is a configurable product, and instead of using the regular configurable dropdown like Magento has out of the box, they created this nice menu to just show all the variations, because they have probably a lot of simple products assigned to configurable. And what they are doing, they know what kind of options are available. And for each option, they try to access a simple product by using these get product by attributes. And that one produces a lot of database queries. So let's see the SQL query list. Yeah, so this is all the text data, but I don't see that query related to get product by attribute options or something like that. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see when you have so many queries on a page. But in general, yeah, it's possible to optimize this piece of code to reduce it to the minimum amount of time, because here it's a lot of time spent on generating this one. It's not good for hosting, and it's not good also for the customer itself, because yeah, you want to sell products, you don't want your customer to wait for the page to render on the backend side. And I can imagine, like, every single time when someone orders one of these products, the whole cache of configurable product gets flushed. So yeah, this is kind of a problem as well. When you have this slow product page, this slow product page, yeah. Okay, so here we have a category page. So let's quickly check how this one works. As I understand, they don't have a shopping cart, right? They have this request a quote.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Let's see. Okay, the category page is not that bad. So the biggest issue is on product page, as I see. And they are using the standard MySQL search, right? So they can benefit from Elasticsearch in this case. Yeah, they definitely can benefit, because the building of the filters takes quite some time. Okay, so this page can be optimized quite well by just installing Elasticsearch. Like, they don't need to have anything else. Just install Elasticsearch, configure your Elasticsearch connection, and reindex, and they're ready to go. Right, so there's nothing else I can suggest. I don't see load in the loops on this page.
Did you see any MSI issues?
I think MSI issues are mostly on the product page, because when you have every single product being loaded separately again and again and again, the number of MSI queries also increases a lot. And you said that they also have FPC warmer, so like they also warm up pages. So unless their warmer can spawn, let's say, thousands of TCP connections, it won't be generating cache quite efficiently, because like 30 seconds to render a page, that's going to be very tough. And taking a look at the number of products that they have, let's see. Can I, let's say, use some kind of a search bar?
They have shop by in here. I'm surprised we didn't see shop by.
I think maybe they have it, but they don't use it. Okay. What kind of common term will be? Maybe AC. Does it work? Okay, let's go to the homepage. Maybe it will work from the homepage. Okay. Oh, it's kind of a full text search with different documents as well. So let's see.
That's pretty cool.
Cognitive services Azure. So this is some kind of a search service. Bing customer service search. So they're not using the standard Magento search. They use Bing search.
Yeah, wow, I haven't seen that in a long time where people would use Google site search for their site search. But Bing, I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, but
I forgot that was even a thing people did.
But here, yeah, they don't use the standard search of Magento, so I think we don't have anything else to review then.
No, you can't add a product to the cart, just a quote. It's just their quote tool that's really causing the record 15,000 database queries. You think MSI is adding to that?
Sure. Sure, it's adding to that. However, yeah, let's just take a look at the queries with a smaller number of them. So let's take a sort here. And here we see, for instance, inventory stock channels, inventory stock sales channel, and so on. So these are all MSI queries. And here, for instance, as well, like stock item and so on. Yes. So MSI adds here some additional load, but only because the product is loaded by ID in a loop. So as soon as you don't load the product by ID in a loop, a lot of MSI queries will be reduced as well. So
yeah,
as a first point of fix for them is actually getting rid of load in a loop here, and it will solve a lot of latency issues. And then remove those extensions that load composer files, that iterate through a file system to grab own module version, fix those extensions, and then think about, hey, can we profile again with a Blackfire? Can we see if there's still an issue on the product page? And then decide if they need to optimize MSI more. But I don't see MSI as the biggest contributor here. Maybe they even don't use MSI, probably. If they didn't use MSI before 2.3, and let's say if they don't use it right now, because I don't see that they do any kind of queries. Let's see. Do they do a query on inventory itself? Inventory. No, so they probably use only single store inventory, but they seems like they already applied MSI patches, because I don't see that they do a query here to a view table. So they're using here the standard catalog inventory table. So basically, they can even disable MSI modules if they don't use MSI. They need to check it, of course, themselves. Like if they don't use multi-warehouse setup, then it's safe to disable it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we have the nwthemes, revslider, curl call, composer, patch to hardcode version, or just remove the extension. Theme editor was using view configuration file, which should be cached in redis. Classic composer autoload not optimized. And the big offender was the record setting, 36? Was it 36,000 database queries on the product page for the instant quote? And 252
I think it was
products in a loop.
Here it is. 13,000.
13,500. 13,000.
Yeah, so this is taking the most of the time on a database level. So mostly they have issues with the product pages. It's the biggest pain point. So yeah.
Yeah, be curious to see if they're able to rewrite that custom functionality, which you suggested doing an indexer to create a separate table.
If they need if they even need an indexer, you know, it all depends. It all depends what they want to show there, because maybe they even don't need those get products by attribute. Maybe they can just run a query of all products that are simple products in stock and just show them over there. Like, yeah, there's probably no need to do any additional operations there. And especially, like, if you take a look at the list, they even don't output prices here. So, you know, like, there is nothing complex in order to all the time, like, call in a loop every single product. Probably they check stock availability, but you can definitely optimize this part.
Are they using Shopify there? No, that was their own custom quote thing.
So here, yeah. I don't know what this model number does, because probably if I click here, okay, so now it doesn't work. Yeah. So configure a model, close the window, and still model number is not there.
Yeah, try selecting one of. It just filters it down. And what happens if you click request a quote from that? I think that's getting worse. You upgraded or you updated and it got worse.
Yeah, that's what I mean by that one. Okay, so you can click the request quote, and it doesn't populate the model number.
No, that's broken. Can you check the search too? I think the search was broken on the product page as well. Do you have an ad blocker or something that might be?
I think Mozilla automatically blocks the content by default. Like it's one of the features of the Mozilla browser that it prevents to send requests to Facebook and other social networks by default. But here it would show me here that it was trying to access something. It would show
requests for block. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is protection dashboard. It doesn't show me anything about today. It's definitely not from this one. Yeah.
I'm gonna see if that's broken for me too.
Because maybe they didn't test maybe in Mozilla. And there's probably just, let's see.
Oh, yeah, like my product page, if I click on the drop down that says choose an option for model number, like I have all the products in it.
Okay, so for me, it just tells me that, hey, here is Mozilla crashed.
Oh. Wait, this actually took me to the cart. You didn't go to the cart. Like you gotta
request a quote.
Okay. Wait, yeah, no, that's weird. So when I'm on, hold on. When I'm on product, the first link in the chat, HRRS 5KV, and if I click instant quote, it loads the pop-up like you see. And if I click any of the products on the left and I click get instant quote, it takes me to the cart and I have a product in my cart. So that's definitely not working the same in Mozilla.
Yeah. And I see, for instance, here. Okay. Here you see as well, I have a bunch of JavaScript errors in the browser. So
yeah, that's busted in Mozilla.
Yeah, so Firefox users probably unable to do anything on this website, unfortunately.
Your search up there was broken too. Didn't you try to use the search? I mean, it's JavaScript, so it's probably if there's JavaScript errors.
Mm-hmm. So that's why probably there is no model number in the dropdown, because I have this JavaScript error. And do you have any model number in the dropdown?
I do. I have all the models.
Okay.
Let me see Edge on some. Try Edge.
There is some nice service that this customer can use to cross-test it in multiple browsers called Browser Stack. Have you used it before?
No, I've heard of it though. I've never personally used it.
It's kind of good one. You have possibility to test in different browsers on real machines. So you get connected through remote desktop to available one.
Oh, through remote, that's cool. It works in IE or Edge for me and Chrome, but not Firefox.
Web browser. Browser market share. Yeah, so Firefox is only 5%, even below 5%. Mostly it's Safari and Chrome. Interesting if it actually works in Safari. I don't have Safari on Linux, but...
Yeah, I don't either. I haven't used the Mac for a while.
But apparently in the United States, like, percent of Safari, probably it also reports iPhone users as well in this counter. Probably yes. Can we we use only desktop? Okay, desktop the story is different. So in desktop, yeah, Chrome is completely.
Okay. I downloaded Firefox and I think it works for me on Windows Firefox.
Okay.
It does.
It just doesn't work on my Linux. Yeah.
So, okay, that's even weirder.
Yeah, okay.
Do you have to enable the protections thing, or?
I think it was enabled by default. So you see, when I have some kind of protection, like it just notifies me that there is some protections enabled, and for their website, it actually also tells me that protections are enabled, but here I think it doesn't tell me.
Yeah, mine say always on too. I don't know why yours would be full of errors and mine isn't.
Yeah, I'm just a lucky Linux user.
I can't even see like what version of Firefox. I guess I can't from the download page.
Maybe it also could be latency, because I visit the website from Europe, and the time for JavaScript to initialize maybe takes longer than, for instance, in your case, because you are in the United States. And it could be possible, because the error that I see, it tells me directly that, hey, like, you're trying to call this method before initialization has started. So there is some kind of JavaScript that invokes some method, and this method is probably something that actually they probably have in their functionality that invokes something before something happens. So probably just because my connection is far away from the website, maybe it takes longer to get something executed. So it could be a random issue that I just get replicated all the time on my end.
Do you have Chrome?
No, I didn't install it on Linux. Only Firefox.
That's a new one. JavaScript timing errors. Heck yeah.
Yeah, JavaScript is always a fun thing to deal with. Okay, so we have, I think, enough of data for a customer to work on. And everyone, thanks everyone who's still watching the show till this moment. Till the next one, all right?
Yep. Load in the Loop at Twitter, LITL at magemojo.com. Thank you to Blackfire for sponsoring this.
Yeah, Blackfire, big respect.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.